Admiral Park Do-yeon stood at the observation window of the starship Horizon and watched the massive station grow larger as they approached. The Galactic Council station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It was a city floating in space, with lights covering every surface like stars had been trapped inside metal walls. Thousands of ships moved around it, coming and going like insects around a hive. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Yoon Minji said as she walked up beside him. She was holding a data tablet, her eyes tired from reading reports all night. It's impressive, Park admitted. But beauty and danger often look the same from a distance. Minji smiled at that. She had known the Admiral for 15 years, and he always spoke like this, careful, thoughtful, never rushing to judgment. It was why Earth had chosen him to lead this mission. First contact with the rulers of the galaxy was not something to trust to a hot-headed fool, Captain. Baek Sunwoo's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, we're receiving docking instructions. They're directing us to Bay 47. Park walked to the command center where Sunwoo sat at his station. The young captain was only 29, but he had proven himself in 3 different conflicts. His fingers moved quickly across the controls, his face calm but alert. What do we know about Bay 47? Park asked. Sunwoo pulled up a map of the station. It's in the lower section, sir. Far from the main chambers. The data we have suggests it's usually used for cargo ships and service vessels. Minji frowned. They're putting us with the cargo? It seems so, Sunwoo said. Park felt something cold settle in his chest, but he kept his face still. Follow their instructions. We're guests here. We'll play by their rules. The Horizon moved into the bay and landed with a soft sound. Through the windows, Park could see the space around them. It was gray and simple, with metal walls that had stains from years of use. There were no welcoming signs, no officials waiting to greet them. Just empty space and silence. I'm not seeing any reception committee, Sunwoo said, stating what they could all see. Then we wait, Park said. They waited. Hours passed. Park used the time to review everything they knew about the Galactic Council. 5 species ruled the galaxy, calling themselves the 5 Pillars. They had held power for 50,000 years, longer than human civilization had existed. The Morphean Dominion, the Korvathi Empire, the Luminari Collective, the Vexian Authority, and the Thornaki Federation. Each one controlled hundreds of worlds and billions of beings. Minji spent the time practicing phrases in 4 different alien languages. She had learned them from old transmissions that Earth had captured over the years. No human had ever spoken directly to any of the 5 pillars before. She wanted to be ready. Sunwoo kept the ship's systems running and watched the sensors. Other ships came and went from the station. He noticed that they were all directed to higher bays closer to the main sections. None of them waited like the Horizon was waiting. 1 day passed. Then 2, on the 3rd day, Minji came to Park with worry on her face. Admiral, I've been monitoring their communication channels. In the last 3 days, the Council has received 12 different delegations. Some of them arrived after us. All of them have already been seen. Park nodded slowly. They're making us wait on purpose. It's a message, Minji said. They want us to know our place before we even meet them. Then we'll send our own message, Park replied. We'll wait as long as they want. Patience is also strength. On the morning of the 4th day, a message finally came. A flat, mechanical voice spoke through their communication system. Human vessel, you are summoned to the Grand Chamber. Send 3 representatives. You have 1 hour. Park gathered his people in the meeting room. Minji was there, along with Sunwoo and the other senior officers. Everyone looked tired but alert. Minji and Sunwoo, you're with me, Park said. The rest of you stay with the ship. Keep the engines warm. Lieutenant Han Ji-won, the intelligence officer, stepped forward. Admiral, I should come too. If something goes wrong, I need you here to get the ship out, Park said firmly. And I need you to keep doing what you've been doing. He gave Ji-won a meaningful look. Ji-won understood. She had been quietly working on the station's computer network since they arrived. slipping through security systems and gathering information. So far, she had found some very interesting things. She nodded and stepped back. The three chosen representatives put on their formal uniforms. Dark blue with silver trim, the colors of United Earth. Minji checked her translation device one more time. Sunwoo straightened his shoulders and took a deep breath. Remember, Park told them as they walked to the exit, we represent 8 billion people. Everything we do and say reflects on all of them. Stay calm, stay respectful, and watch everything. They stepped out of the ship and found a single guide waiting for them. It was a small creature with gray skin and 4 arms, wearing a simple uniform. It didn't speak to them, just turned and started walking. They followed. The walk to the grand chamber took them through long hallways and up several lifts. As they moved higher in the station, everything changed. The walls became cleaner, decorated with art and lights. The air smelled better. They passed beings of many different species, all of them stopping to stare at the humans with curious or confused expressions. Some whispered to each other. A few laughed. Finally, they reached a massive door made of some golden metal. The guide touched a panel and the door slid open. The grand chamber was enormous. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Lights floated in the air like small suns. And at the far end, raised up on platforms of different heights, sat the representatives of the 5 pillars. Park had seen images of them, but seeing them in person was different. High Sovereign Velix of the Morphians looked like a serpent made of living crystal, light bending around his body. Archon Thren of the Korvathi was a massive insectoid creature, bigger than any 2 humans, with armor that looked like black stone. Prime Voice Solara of the Luminari was barely visible. Just a shape made of moving light and energy. The other 2 pillars were also present, but it was these 3 who sat highest. These 3 who held the most power. Park, Minji, and Sunwoo walked forward until they reached a spot marked on the floor. They stopped and bowed deeply, holding the bow for 5 seconds, exactly as Minji had instructed. When they rose, High Sovereign Velix was not even looking at them. He was studying something on a data tablet. His crystalline face turned away. Archon Thren made a sound that might have been a laugh. His huge head tilted down toward them, compound eyes reflecting their small forms 100 times over. So, the Archon said, his voice deep and rough, these are the humans. The way he said the word made it sound like something unpleasant he had found on the bottom of his foot. Park kept, his face still and his hands steady at his sides. Beside him, he could feel Minji's tension. Sunwoo's jaw was tight. The test was only beginning. The silence in the grand chamber was heavy. Park could feel it pressing against his skin like cold water. He stood straight and waited for the council to speak first. This was their house, their rules. High Sovereign Velix finally looked up from his data tablet. His crystalline eyes moved over the 3 humans slowly, the way someone might look at insects that had crawled into their home. There was no curiosity in that gaze. No interest. Just cold evaluation. Humans, Velix said. His voice sounded like glass breaking softly. You have traveled far to stand before this council. We have reviewed your species, your history, your accomplishments. He said the last word like it tasted bad. Minji stepped forward slightly and spoke in the Morphian language she had practiced for months. High Sovereign, we are honored to be received by the 5 pillars. Earth comes in peace and friendship, hoping to. You may speak in your own tongue, Velix cut her off. Translation systems exist for a reason. We do not need to hear our language broken by primitive mouths. Minji's face went red, but she stepped back and said nothing. Park felt a flash of anger in his chest. He let it pass through him and disappear. Getting angry would help nothing. Archon Thren leaned forward on his platform, his massive body making the structure creak. Let us not waste time with ceremony. We know why you are here, humans. You have finally crawled out of your small corner of space and discovered that you are not alone. You want to know your place in the galaxy. We are here to establish relations, Park said, his voice calm and clear. To learn about the galactic community and find how we might contribute to... Contribute? Prime Voice Solara interrupted. Her form flickered with what might have been amusement. What could your kind possibly contribute? You have had faster-than-light travel for what, 100 years? We had it when your ancestors were drawing pictures on cave walls. Park took a breath. With respect, Prime Voice, age is not the only measure of value. Fresh perspectives, Ken, fresh perspectives, Archon Thren repeated, and this time he definitely laughed. It was an ugly sound, like rocks grinding together. Listen to the creature. It thinks it has something to teach us. The other pillars joined in the laughter. It echoed through the chamber, bouncing off the walls and high ceiling. Park felt Sunwoo shift beside him, the young captain's hands forming fists at his sides. Park gave him a small look, and Sunwoo forced himself to relax. When the laughter died down, High Sovereign Velix raised one crystalline hand. Enough! Let us proceed with the business at hand. He touched his data tablet, and suddenly a holographic display appeared in the air between the Council and the humans. It showed Earth, their home. The blue and green planet spinning slowly in the projection, beautiful and small. The Council has already made its determination regarding humanity, Velix announced. Based on your technological level, your social development, and your galactic significance, you have been classified as a servant species. The words hit Park like a physical blow. Servant species. He had read about this classification in the data Juwan had gathered. It meant humanity would be used for labor. Their resources would be taken. Their people would serve the needs of the 5 pillars. They would have no voice, no rights, no future of their own. This classification, Velix continued, comes with many benefits. You will receive protection from outside threats. You will be given purpose and direction. Your population will be managed efficiently to prevent the waste and chaos that young species often create. You will learn, Archon Thren added, that service to the pillars is the highest honor a lesser species can achieve. Park's mind was racing, but he kept his voice steady. May I ask what criteria were used for this classification? What would be required for humanity to be considered for a different status? Velix's crystalline face showed something that might have been surprise. Perhaps he had expected begging. Or anger. Not a calm question. The criteria are complex, the High Sovereign said slowly. They involve technological advancement, cultural sophistication, military capability, and many other factors. These are measured against standards that have been in place for 30,000 years. Standards that humans could not hope to meet for another 10,000 years, Prime Voice Solara finished. If ever we have seen species like yours before, aggressive, ambitious, but ultimately limited. You burn bright and fast, and then you fade. It is better for everyone if we guide your development properly from the beginning. Guide? Park said. You mean control? The chamber went quiet. Velix's eyes narrowed. You should be more careful with your words, human, the High Sovereign said. We are being generous. There were those on this council who argued that your species should be classified even lower. As a resource species? Do you know what that means? Park knew. Resource species were not just servants. They were property. Their planets were stripped, their populations used up and discarded. Minji spoke up, her voice tight but controlled. Earth has much to offer the galactic community. Our scientists, our artists, our thinkers. If you would just allow us to demonstrate, we have seen your demonstrations, Archon Thren said with a dismissive wave of one massive arm. Your little ships, your simple weapons, toys, children's toys compared to what even our lowest client species possess. You speak of scientists, Prime Voice Solara added. But what have your scientists truly accomplished? You play with basic physics that we mastered 50,000 years ago? You are not peers. You are not even students. You are children who have just learned to walk and believe they can run. The holographic image of Earth changed. Lines appeared on it, dividing the planet into sections. Each section was marked with the symbol of one of the 5 pillars. This is how your world will be administered, Velix explained casually, as if he were discussing the weather. Each pillar will oversee a region. Resources will be extracted according to quotas we have already established. Your population will be assigned to work groups based on their abilities. Park stared at the divided image of his home. Everything humanity had built, every dream they had held, every struggle they had overcome, all of it being carved up like meat by beings who saw them as nothing more than useful animals. Sunwoo couldn't stay quiet anymore. You can't do this. We haven't agreed to anything. We came here to talk, to negotiate, not to be told we're slaves. Archon Thren moved with shocking speed for his size. He leaned down from his platform until his huge face was close to the humans, his breath hot and smelling of something chemical. "Little creature," the Archon said softly, "there is no negotiation. There never was. You are here because we allowed it. You exist because we permit it. And your future is whatever we decide it will be. The only choice you have is to accept this with grace ... or to make things difficult for yourselves and your people." He pulled back, and his tone became almost pleasant. "I would advise grace. The difficult path is very unpleasant." Park looked at his two companions. Minji's hands were shaking slightly, but her eyes were hard. Sunwoo looked like he wanted to draw a weapon he didn't have and fight until they killed him. Park understood both feelings, but he also understood something else. Something the council did not see. They were arrogant. Completely, utterly arrogant. They had not even bothered to truly study humanity. They had glanced at a few reports and made their decision. They did not see humans as a threat because they could not imagine any young species being a threat. Their power had been unchallenged for so long that they had forgotten what a real challenge looked like, that arrogance was a weapon, and Park intended to use it. "We understand your position," he said finally. His voice was quiet, even humble. "This is much to process. We will need to prepare our people for this transition. May we request time to return home and make arrangements?" Velix looked at him with something almost like approval. Good, the serpent was probably thinking. The creature knows its place. "How much time?" the High Sovereign asked. 30 days, Park said. The pillars exchanged glances. 30 days was nothing to beings who lived for thousands of years. "Granted," Velix said. "Return to your world. Prepare your population. In 30 days, our administrative fleet will arrive to begin the transition. Do not attempt to resist. Do not attempt to flee. There is nowhere in this galaxy where you would be safe from us." Park bowed again, and Minji and Sunwoo followed his lead. They held the bow for 5 seconds, then turned and walked out of the grand chamber. Behind them, the laughter started again. They walked in silence through the hallways and lifts, back down to the lower levels, back to their ship waiting in the cargo bay. Only when they were inside the horizon with the doors sealed did anyone speak. 30 days, Sunwoo said bitterly. 30 days and then we're done. Why did you agree to that? Why didn't we fight? Park looked at him calmly. Fight with what? 3 people against 5 empires? So we just surrender? We just accept being slaves? Minji put her hand on Sunwoo's arm. Captain, think. Why would the Admiral ask for exactly 30 days? Sunwoo frowned, his anger giving way to confusion. Then, slowly, understanding started to dawn on his face. Park was already moving toward the communication center. Get me a secure channel to Earth, military encryption. And get Lieutenant Han. She and I have a lot to discuss. The war room beneath Geneva was silent except for the soft sound of breathing. 50 of the most powerful people on Earth sat around a long table, staring at Admiral Park Do-yeon as he finished his report. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists, all of them looking at him like he had just announced the end of the world. In a way, he had. Servant species? The Secretary General repeated quietly. They want to make us slaves. They don't want to make us slaves, Park corrected. In their minds, we already are. They've already divided our planet among themselves. This isn't a threat or a negotiation. To them, it's simply the natural order of things. General No Taeyong, the head of United Earth Defense Forces, slammed his fist on the table. He was 61 years old, with gray hair and scars on his face from battles fought decades ago. Then we fight. We throw everything we have at them. We show them that humanity doesn't kneel. And then what? Asked Dr. Choi Yuanji from the end of the table. She was the lead scientist at the Advanced Research Division, a woman who had spent her life building things that most people thought impossible. We fight, we die, and they take our planet anyway. Maybe they destroy it completely as a lesson to other species? Is that what you want? I want to die on my feet, No growled. I want to live on my feet, Park said firmly. And I want our children to live on their feet. That's why we're not going to fight. Not yet. Not the way they expect? He touched a control, and the holographic display at the center of the table changed. It showed data that Lieutenant Han Ji-won had pulled from the Council's networks during their 3-day wait. This is what we learned while we were sitting in that cargo bay, Park said. The 5 pillars have ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. Their technology was incredible once, revolutionary, but here's the thing. He zoomed in on the data. They haven't invented anything new in 20,000 years. Minji stepped forward to explain. Their society is completely rigid. They found systems that worked, and they stopped changing them. Their ships, their weapons, their computers, everything is based on designs that are thousands of years old. They improve them slowly, make them more efficient, but there's no real innovation. No new ideas. Why would there be? Park added. They rule everything. They have no competition, no challenges, no reason to grow. They've been coasting on old achievements for longer than human civilization has existed. Dr. Choi's eyes were bright now. Show me their shield technology, she said. Park displayed the relevant data. Choi studied it for a long moment, then started to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just seen something amazing and terrible at the same time. Their shields are based on a single frequency matrix, she said. One frequency. They've used the same basic principle for 12,000 years. Different species, different ships, but the same underlying system. Can you break it? General No asked. I already have. In theory, Choi looked around the table. 3 years ago, my team developed something we called quantum disruption technology. It was meant to disable enemy electronics at a distance. The project was shelved because it was too expensive and we had no enemy advanced enough to use it against. She smiled coldly. I think we just found a use for it. Park nodded. If we can disable their shields, not just their shields, Choi interrupted. Everything. Weapons, engines, life support. One pulse and their ships become metal boxes floating in space. The room was quiet again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Not despair. Something else. How long to make this weapon operational? The Secretary General asked. If I have unlimited resources and every engineer on Earth working on it? Choi thought for a moment. 20 days. You have 19. Park said, the next 3 weeks were the busiest in human history. Dr. Choi took over an entire city's worth of factories. Her team's working around the clock to build quantum disruption devices. They didn't need many. Just enough to cover the solar system. General No coordinated with the fleet. Officially, Earth had 200 warships. Unofficially, there were many more. Hidden in asteroid fields, stationed at secret bases on distant moons, waiting for a call that military planners had always known might come someday. The call went out. The hidden fleet began to move. Lieutenant Han Ji-won kept working on the Council's networks. She had found something interesting in her first hack, and now she dug deeper. The servant species, the races that the 5 pillars had conquered over the millennia, they weren't happy. They had no way to organize, no way to fight back, but the anger was there, burning quietly in 1,000 different worlds. Minji worked on a message. It had to be perfect. It had to reach every servant species in the galaxy at the same moment and tell them that they had a choice. That they didn't have to be slaves forever. That someone was standing up. On the 25th day, Park called another meeting. The disruption field is ready, Dr. Choi reported. We've tested it on our own ships. It works exactly as predicted. One pulse and everything shuts down. The fleet is in position, General No added. 2,000 ships. It's everything we have, but it's more than they're expecting. A lot more. The message is ready, Minji said. The moment we transmit, every being in the galaxy with a receiver will hear it. Park looked around at his people. They were tired. They were scared, but they were also ready. The Council thinks we're preparing to be slaves, he said. They think we're telling our population to accept their fate. They have no idea what's coming. They'll find out in 5 days, No said with grim satisfaction. One more thing, Jiwan said. She had been quiet during the meeting, but now she stepped forward. I found something else in their networks. Something I think you should all see. She put it on the display. It was a record of communications between the 5 pillars over the past century. Discussions about Earth, about humans. They've been watching us for 100 years, Jiwan explained. Ever since we developed radio technology. They've been monitoring us, studying us. That's not surprising, the Secretary General said. They monitor every species. Yes, but look at what they're saying. Jiwan highlighted several passages. They're worried about us. Not because of our technology, they think that's primitive, but because of how fast we develop it. 100 years ago, we were using basic electronics. Now we have starships. They've never seen any species advance this quickly. Park read the highlighted text. One passage stood out. It was from High Sovereign Velix himself, written 50 years ago. The humans must be controlled before they realize their potential. If they are allowed to develop freely for another century, they could become a threat to the established order. They're not making us servants because they think we're weak, Park said slowly. They're making us servants because they're afraid of what we might become if they don't. The room absorbed this. It changed things. Not the plan was set. But it changed how they felt about the plan. They weren't just defending themselves. They were proving the Council right to be afraid. On the morning of the 30th day, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the horizon. The ship was positioned at the edge of Earth's solar system, and behind it stretched the human fleet. 2,000 ships of all sizes, from massive battle cruisers to fast destroyers. More ships than humans had ever gathered in one place. Around them, hidden in the darkness of space, the quantum disruption devices waited. Satellites and stations that looked like ordinary equipment but held Dr. Choi's weapons inside them. Admiral, Sunwoo said from his station, we're detecting a large fleet entering the system. 500 ships. They match the profiles of Council vessels. Park looked at the display. The Council's ceremonial fleet had arrived right on time. They were flying in perfect formation, their ships gleaming and proud, coming to collect their new servants. Open a channel, Park said. Let's say hello. The face that appeared on screen was High Sovereign Velix. The crystalline serpent looked pleased, satisfied, like someone coming to collect a package they had ordered. Admiral Park, Velix said. I am glad to see that humans know how to follow instructions. Is your world prepared for the transition? Park smiled. It was not a humble smile. It was not a scared smile. It was the smile of someone who holds all the cards and is about to lay them on the table. High Sovereign, he said. I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not here to transition. We're here to talk. Velix's expression flickered. Talk? There's nothing to talk about. The Council has made its decision. You will comply or you will be destroyed. That's the thing, Park said. I don't think you can destroy us. I don't think you can do anything to us at all. And I think you've known that was possible for a long time. That's why you wanted to put the leash on us now, before we figured out our own strength. He leaned forward. We figured it out. Behind him, the human fleet began to move forward. High Sovereign Velix stared at the display showing the human fleet. His crystalline face was hard to read, but something flickered in those ancient eyes. Not fear, not yet, but surprise. Definite surprise. 2,000 ships, he said slowly. Impressive for a species of your age, but still meaningless. Our fleet alone has enough firepower to turn your entire planet into ash. And this is just our ceremonial fleet. Our war fleets are 100 times larger. I know, Park said calmly. I've studied your military capabilities. Very impressive. If they work? Velix's eyes narrowed. What do you mean, if they work? Park didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Captain Sunwoo. Send the signal? Sunwoo pressed a single button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the space around them, the quantum disruption devices activated. Invisible waves of energy spread outward at the speed of light, passing through every ship in the area. Human ships were shielded against the effect. Council ships were not. On the display, Park watched as 500 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy went dark. Lights flickered and died. Engines sputtered and stopped. Weapon systems powered down. The perfect formation broke apart as ships began to drift. Lifeless and silent, Velix's face on the screen glitched and froze as even his communication systems failed. Then the signal cut out entirely. Report? Park said. Sunwoo was reading his instruments with wide eyes. Admiral, it worked. Every single council ship is dead in space. No shields, no weapons, no engines. They're completely helpless. Minji let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Life support? Still functioning on most ships. The disruption field is precise. It targets military and navigation systems but leaves basic survival systems intact. Sunwoo looked up. They're not going to die out there. They're just not going to be able to do anything. Park nodded. This was important. He had been clear with Dr. Choi from the beginning. They were not here to commit mass murder. They were here to prove a point. Get me a channel to the High Sovereign's ship, he said. They should still have emergency communications. It took a few minutes, but eventually Velix's face appeared on the screen again. The crystalline serpent looked different now. His composure was cracked. His eyes were wide with something that might have been shock. Or anger. Or fear. Probably all three. What have you done? Velix demanded. What is this weapon? Something new, Park said. I know that's a strange concept for your people. You haven't made anything new in 20,000 years. But we have. We make new things all the time. It's what we do. This changes nothing, Velix hissed. You cannot disable every ship in the galaxy. When word of this reaches the home fleets of the 5 pillars, they will come for you. Thousands of ships, millions, you will be erased from existence. Maybe, Park agreed. But I don't think so. You see, we've been busy during these 30 days. We haven't just been building weapons. We've been talking. He nodded to Minji, and she activated another system. Across the galaxy, on every frequency and every language, a message began to broadcast. Minji's voice, calm and clear, spoke words that would change everything. To all who hear this message. To the servant species of the 5 pillars. To every being who has lived under the rule of those who call themselves your masters. We are humanity. We are a young species from a small planet called Earth. 30 days ago, the Galactic Council told us that we would be slaves. They told us we had no choice. They told us to accept our fate. The message continued, and Park watched Velix's face as he listened. We refused. Today, we have disabled an entire Council fleet with a single weapon. We have proven that the pillars are not invincible. They can be challenged. They can be stopped. They can be defeated. And now we offer you a choice. The same choice we made. You can remain servants. Or you can stand up. You can be free. Humanity will stand with anyone who chooses freedom. This is our promise. The message ended. Silence filled the bridge of the horizon. Velix's voice was quiet when he spoke again. You fool. You have no idea what you've done. The servant species are servants because they are weak, because they need to be led. They will not rise up. They will not fight. All you have done is signed your own death warrant and the death warrant of every human in existence. Maybe, Park said again. We'll see. He turned to Jiwan's station. Lieutenant, what are we picking up from the servant worlds? Jiwan's face was glowing as she monitored the communications. Admiral, the message is spreading. I'm seeing responses from dozens of worlds, hundreds. Some are scared. Some are telling us we're crazy. She paused. But some are saying yes. They're saying they're ready. They're asking what to do next. Park felt something warm in his chest. Hope, actual hope. What about the pillars? What are their fleets doing? The home fleets are mobilizing, Jiwan reported. As expected, but ... She frowned at her display. There's confusion. Some of the servant species that crew those fleets are refusing to follow orders. Nothing major yet, but there are delays, arguments. The Korvathi fleet has barely moved at all. Most of their engine crews are from conquered worlds, Sunwoo laughed. It was a short, sharp sound of amazement. Their own crews are sabotaging them. Not sabotaging, Minji corrected. It's not cooperating. There's a difference. These people have been waiting for a chance for thousands of years. They're not going to throw it away, but they're also not going to rush into something without knowing it's real. Park understood. Trust had to be earned. The servant species had been betrayed and crushed too many times to believe in a savior just because someone sent a message. Humanity had to prove itself. Get me Archon Thren, he said. The Archon's face appeared on screen. The massive insectoid looked furious, his mandibles clicking rapidly. Human, you dare to speak to me? I dare to offer you a choice, Park said. The same choice we offered everyone? You can keep fighting. You can try to crush us. Maybe you'll even succeed. But you'll lose your empire in the process. The servant species will rise. Your own crews will turn against you. By the time you reach Earth, you might not have any ships left to fight with. We will never surrender to primitives, Thren snarled. I'm not asking you to surrender. I'm asking you to change. To join something new instead of clinging to something old. Park leaned forward. You said we were barely past the Stone Age. You were right. We are young. We learned to walk yesterday and we're already running. And we will keep running. We will keep growing. In 100 years, in 1,000 years, we will be something you cannot imagine. You can be part of that. Or you can be left behind. Thren's compound eyes stared at him, unreadable. Then the Archon cut the communication. That went well, Sunwoo muttered. Better than you think, Minji said. She was watching her own data streams. The other pillars heard that conversation. I think Park just planted a seed. Hours passed. The Council fleet drifted helplessly, their crews trapped inside with nothing to do but wait and think. The human fleet held its position, watchful but not aggressive. They had proven they could destroy the Council ships. Now they proved they chose not to. Jiwan kept monitoring the galaxy-wide communications. The servant species were organizing. Slowly at first, then faster. Secret networks that had existed for centuries suddenly came alive with activity. Names were being shared. Plans were being made on 12 different worlds. Populations that had been kept under control for generations began to push back against their rulers. It wasn't violent revolution. Not yet. But it was resistance, refusal, the word no being spoken by millions of voices that had been silent for too long. Then, as the hours stretched toward a full day, something unexpected happened. Admiral, Jiwan said, I'm receiving a communication request. Not from the Council fleet. From where? From Archon Thren's homeworld. Direct transmission. Park looked at Minji. She shrugged, as surprised as he was. Put it through. The face that appeared was not Thren. It was another Korvathi, smaller and older, with scarred armor and tired eyes. I am Second Archon Muval, the creature said. I speak for the Korvathi Military Council. We have been watching today's events with great interest. I'm sure you have, Park said carefully. Archon Thren believes we should send everything we have against your world. Burn it clean and make an example. Muval paused. Not everyone agrees? You showed us something today, human. You showed us that the old ways may not work anymore. Some of us think it is time for new ways. Park felt his heart beating faster. What are you proposing? We propose to do nothing. The Corvathi fleet will not move against Earth. We will not help you, but we will not fight you. Consider it a chance to see what happens next. It was not support, not friendship, but it was the first crack in the wall. The Luminari will not agree to this, Park said. Neither will the Morphians. The Morphians and Luminari are welcome to try conquering your world alone, Muval replied. They will find it harder than they expect. And while they are busy with you, the galaxy will keep changing around them. Perhaps they will change too. Or perhaps they will break. The old Corvathi's eyes glittered. Either way, it will be interesting to watch. The communication ended. Minji was staring at the blank screen. Did that just happen? Did one of the 5 pillars just refuse to fight us? One faction of 1 pillar, Park corrected. But yes, it happened. 3 months. That was all it took for 50,000 years of empire to start crumbling. Admiral Park Do-yun stood at the window of the Galactic Council station, the same station where he had been treated like an insect. Made to wait in a cargo bay, laughed at by beings who thought they were gods. Now he was here as an invited guest. More than a guest. A respected voice. The galaxy had changed. It started slowly. In the days after the confrontation at Earth, the Corvathi stayed neutral, just as Second Archon Muval had promised. This forced the other pillars to move without their strongest military ally. The Luminari sent a fleet toward human space, but halfway there, they discovered that the servant species crewing their ships had disabled the navigation systems. The fleet drifted in empty space for 2 weeks before finally limping back home. The Morphians tried a different approach. They sent assassins to Earth, experts in infiltration and poison who had killed thousands of targets over the centuries. The assassins never reached their targets. Human intelligence networks, led by Lieutenant Henry 1, tracked them from the moment they entered the solar system. They were captured, questioned, and returned to Morphian space with a polite message suggesting that such methods would not work against humanity. Meanwhile, the servant species were rising. Not in bloody revolution that would come later, in some places, but in quiet rebellion. They stopped working. They stopped following orders. They stopped pretending that they accepted their place. On world after world, the machinery of empire ground to a halt as the people, who actually ran everything, decided they were done. 12 species formally declared independence in the first month. By the end of the second month, it was 30. Each one reached out to humanity, asking for support, for protection, for guidance. Earth gave what it could: weapons, technology, advisors, but more important than any of that, it gave an example. It proved that standing up was possible. Now, 90 days after the insult in the Grand Chamber, Park was back in that same room. But everything was different. The platforms where the 5 pillars had sat so high above everyone else were empty. New seating had been arranged on the main floor, with everyone at the same level. Representatives from 100 different species filled the room, talking in small groups, arguing, negotiating, building something new. Dr. Yun Minji walked up beside Park. She looked tired but happy. She had been working constantly since the confrontation, talking to every species that would listen, helping to shape the framework of what would come next. The Luminari finally agreed to the charter, she said. They weren't happy about it, but they agreed. That's all 5 pillars now. Park nodded. It had been the hardest negotiation of all. The 5 pillars did not want to give up their power. They did not want to become equals with species they had ruled for millennia. But they had no choice. Their empires were falling apart. Their own people were questioning them. The old order was dying whether they accepted it or not. The Corvathi surprised me, Minji continued. I thought Thren would fight this to the end. Thren is a warrior, Park said. Warriors respect strength. We showed strength. We also showed something else. We could have destroyed his fleet when they were helpless. We didn't. He'll never admit it, but I think that mattered to him. Mercy as a tactic, Minji said. Mercy as a principle. But yes, also as a tactic. Captain Beak Sunwoo approached them. He was in his formal uniform, but he wore it differently now. More comfortably. More like someone who had earned the right to wear it. Admiral, the opening ceremony is about to begin. They want you to speak? Park sighed. He had never liked speeches. He was a military man, more comfortable giving orders than making grand statements. But he understood why it had to be him. He was the face of humanity to the galaxy now. The first human to stand up to the pillars and survive, he walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled beings. So many different species. So many different shapes and sizes and colors. Some of them had been enemies 3 months ago. Some of them had been slaves for thousands of years. All of them were here now, together, trying to build something better. I'm not going to give a long speech, Park began. I'm a soldier, not a poet. But I want to say a few things before we sign this charter. The room went quiet. Every eye and sensor and perception organ focused on him. 3 months ago, I stood in this room and was told that humanity would be slaves. We were told we were primitive, weak, insignificant. We were told that we had no choice but to accept our place at the bottom of the galactic order. He paused, letting the memory settle. We said no. It was a simple word. A small word. But it changed everything. Not because we were strong enough to defeat the 5 pillars in battle, we weren't. And we knew it. It changed everything because we were willing to stand up even when we didn't know if we could win. We were willing to risk everything for the chance to be free. He looked at the representatives of the servant species, former servant species. Many of them were crying. Others were simply staring at him with something like wonder. You did the same thing. When you heard our message, you had a choice. Stay safe, stay quiet, keep your heads down and hope the storm would pass. Or stand up. Risk everything. You chose to stand. Every one of you. That's why we're here today. Not because of human weapons or human tactics. Because of courage. Your courage. General No Taeyang was in the audience, and Park could see the old warrior nodding. This was true. Humanity had started the fire, but the servant species had made it spread. They had been waiting for a spark for thousands of years. Once they had it, they didn't need humanity to tell them what to do. They knew. They had always known. Now we have to decide what comes next, Park continued. The charter we're signing today creates a new galactic order. Not one empire. Not 5 empires. A community of equals. Every species with a voice. Every species with rights. No masters, no servants. He looked at the 5 pillars' representatives. They sat together, separate from the others, their faces unreadable. To the 5 pillars, I want to say this. You were not wrong about everything. You built something that lasted for 50,000 years. You created stability and order and peace of a kind. But you built it on a foundation of control and fear, and foundations like that always crack eventually. Ours cracked too. We're not here because humans are better than you. We're here because we all need something better than what we had. He turned back to the full assembly. This won't be easy. We're going to disagree. We're going to fight. We're going to make mistakes. Some species will leave. Others will push for more power. The old ways will call to us when things get hard, and they will get hard. Park's voice grew stronger. But we're going to try anyway. Because the alternative is going back to the way things were. And I don't know about you, but I refuse to go back. I refuse to tell my children that we had a chance to build something new and we were too scared to take it. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a data chip. The charter. Every law, every principle, every agreement that would govern the new galactic order. Months of negotiation reduced to a small piece of technology. This document says that all species are equal. It says that no one will be a slave. It says that we will solve problems through cooperation instead of conquest. It's just words. Words don't mean anything by themselves. They only mean something if we make them mean something. Every day, every decision, every time we choose what kind of galaxy we want to live in. He placed the chip in the central console. His signature was the first. One by one, representatives from every species came forward to add theirs. The Corvathi, the Luminari, the Morphians, the former servant species. All of them, together, writing their names on a new future. When it was done, the room erupted in sound. Cheering, howling, clicking, frequencies beyond human hearing. Joy and relief and fear and hope all mixed together. Park stepped back and let it wash over him. Minji joined him, and Sunwoo and Jiwan and all the others who had been there from the beginning. What now? Sunwoo asked quietly. Now we see if it works, Park said. Do you think it will? Park considered the question. The truth was, he didn't know. This kind of thing had never been tried before. 100 different species with 100 different cultures and histories and needs, all trying to live together as equals. It might fall apart in a year. It might last for 1,000 years. Probably something in between. I think we'll keep trying until it does, he said finally. Later that night, Park stood alone at a window overlooking the station's docking bays. Ships were coming and going, not council ships or servant ships anymore, just ships. Some were heading to Earth, others to former servant worlds, others to places that had been forbidden for millennia, now open for exploration and trade and all the messy, complicated things that came with freedom. Minji found him there. You should be at the celebration, she said. I needed a minute. She stood beside him, and they watched the ships together. They ruled through fear, Minji said quietly, for 50,000 years. Fear of being conquered, fear of being destroyed, fear of being alone. And it worked. It kept everything stable and ordered and controlled. And we're going to try something different, Park said. What? He thought about it. What was the opposite of fear? What could hold 100 species together when fear was gone?